Hello, everyone. I'm Aurora Meneghello. I am the host of the Repurpose Your Purpose podcast. If you are new to my work, I work with a variety of people across industries and professions. They all have one thing in common: they want to feel fulfilled at work and live an authentic life. So, with this podcast, I am inviting career changers, business owners, and just people I like to talk to have conversations around a wide variety of topics that will inspire you and encourage you to make changes and take action in the direction that is aligned with your purpose and desires. All right, but today is a special episode because I would have never thought in college that many years later I would be hosting a podcast and talking to my very good friend, Michelle. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Aurora. So good to see you. And I'm so glad that we've been friends for all these years. So special. I'm
It's
excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited. So let me start by introducing you properly, okay, to everybody listening or watching. All right. So Michelle Arrieta is an artist, UX UI product designer, and former educator. Breaking barriers as the first college graduate in her family, she has explored diverse career paths ignited by her passions. From exhibiting her art nationwide to her tenure as an art teacher, she was recognized as a champion for children and a cultural arts ambassador. Her journey has been rich and varied. Recently, she ventured into the world of UX UI design, launching a first B2B platform and delving into digital content creation, particularly in art education. Grounded in a growth mindset and guided by principles of reflection, connection, and self care, she's dedicated to making meaningful contributions in every aspect of her evolving path. Wow. And I have to say, I still have one of your paintings.
Really?
Yes, I love it. I love it. It's this is way too much sharing probably, but I don't like to put a ton of stuff on my walls, but yours is on my wall.
Oh, that's so awesome. I actually have one of your pieces on my wall too. It's a forest photography that you took. And then there was this one of a woman that I had in my room forever. So
Ah, that's so
obviously
cool.
we were inspired by each other's art. So that's very exciting.
Yeah. And so, for those who don't know me, I was studying fine art photography, and Michelle was studying painting. That's
Mm-hmm.
how we met. So, just to, I kind of today really want to ask you about your career change and all this kind of stuff. And I want to start from the beginning, or at least adult beginnings,
Yes.
which is really like what it's like to being a creative person and being drawn into the arts. And what does that feel like? And what does that look like to embark on that path?
Yeah, so from a very early stage in my life, art has always been crucial. And growing up in a time where we didn't have phones in front of us, what we did was draw or look at the world with a different lens. And it just really influenced who I am today. I'm also from Mexico City, and their art and culture is just a pivotal part of people's like everyday lives. And so that really influenced me in my life. Um, I did live a little bit of a difficult childhood, but I guess who hasn't nowadays? And art was a way for me to kind of process what was going on during my childhood, during moving to a new country, being an immigrant, and just processing those changes that were going, and also kind of connecting to difficulties of being like neurodivergent. um, Art was a way for me to communicate in a way that I felt that I could not communicate through writing or even reading sometimes. So it is, I mean, it sounds cheesy, but it does feel a little bit like a superpower. And it has really helped me just live a happier life and a more fulfilled life, to have this thread of art in my life.
Yeah, it's so beautiful what you're saying about the healing power of the arts. I can really relate to that. And I remember when I went to art school, that's what I noticed, how it was such a beautiful way for a lot of people
Mhm.
to express themselves, and sometimes to express very painful things, and in a good healing way, right? That was
Yeah.
accessible.
Yeah. And even just going back to art school, and I don't, my perspective is from the lens of being an art student, right? But a lot of our assignments often were self-portraits, self-reflections, discoveries. And so, but you're 20, 19, so like how much of self do you really have? On the other hand, you really need to kind of evolve to become who you are becoming. And so it was a really great practice, and a practice that I actually continue to do till this day. Like, I have self-portraits from 20, 30 years ago, and I have some now, and how they've morphed is really interesting as well.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about all the self-portraits. That's true. That is
Yeah.
true. And I found it so helpful exactly because I think, well, I guess it's always an inquiry, for all of us, even as we grow older. But at
Yeah.
that age, I was so preoccupied with like, who am I?
Yeah. Who am I?
Like,
Yeah. Who am I?
yeah,
That is really the question. And you're so young, and like for us, we were in San Francisco, is like a place that is very vibrant. There's a lot of things going on, so it's just a really heightened sense of life when you're in a place like that as well.
Mm. So, what I also want to ask you is a little bit of like what you notice because, and again, we'll move to your other career, right? But being in the arts is different when it comes to it's a very particular thing,
Yeah.
and I am kind of curious about your thoughts, and I'll tell you a couple of things, that for me I noticed. But the first thing was that basically as an artist I don't know what the percentage is, but a very high percentage of artists are business owners. You're gonna have to work for yourself, and I didn't get any business education in
Yeah.
college. It was really like up to me then to learn later, right? So there seemed to be a disconnection between the expressive thing and all that stuff that we love, right? But actually then, okay, what does that look like to make money? Right?
Hmm.
And then might be different if you're not in art school but I'm more creative. But I feel anywhere creative there's a little bit of a disconnect, there's at least in my experience, between what people are drawn to and taught and the emphasis instead on the actual making money. There seems to be a split. And the other part about being a creative is that there's so much of you in that
Hmm.
job. Like, it's so tied up with our identity. And especially when we're younger, because we're also, I'm gonna generalize here, but maybe more vulnerable because we're still getting to know ourselves.
Hmm.
So I'm wondering what are some of the things that maybe one or two things that you just have thoughts about in this art and being a professional artist or working as a creative, compared to other things.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with the challenges that you brought up forth. Just because being an artist, I don't create 100% of the time. Like, I have to, if you're gonna sell your work, or if I'm gonna show in a gallery, you have to have the writing skills for writing your bios and writing your things, or you have to be able to understand the cost of what you're buying, and what's the worth at the end of the day. And that was definitely a huge disconnect for me. It still kind of is, to be honest. Like, I still kind of struggle with that, as a creative, and how to quantify what I do, and how to like charge for it in a sense. The other huge part I think that comes with being a creative in like the professional world is just like self-doubt, self-doubt of self, but also self-doubt of the criticism that you're getting. Because if you're creating anything, right, people have to see it. If they're going to buy it, if they're going to hang it. And so you're putting yourself out there, like you're saying, you're being very vulnerable. Sometimes you're creating stuff that's about you, about your experience. And it's hurtful if you're not ready to put yourself out there, right? And lastly, like just financial like instability and financial instability that can come with it. The tricky thing about this that I like was really kind of thinking about, and that I'm recognizing more and more, is that like the art world is a multi-billion-dollar industry, right? And there's thousands and thousands of art related careers out there, but there is this like disconnect with the whole starving artist concept, that like if you're an artist or if you're a creative, you're going to starve, you're going to suffer, it's going to be so hard. But it doesn't have to be that way. If, like you mentioned in the beginning of what you said, is if we are given the tools from the beginning to really succeed in whatever field you're in, then it doesn't have to be such a struggle, right? So yeah.
Yeah, I want to talk 3 more episodes about this whole, like, art and business, but I think I want to point to two things. One is that each story that, include your story, my story, everybody's story, is very personal. So if you're listening to this and you're like, but I want to, be a fine art photographer, yeah, you can, right? We're just here talking about some experiences. The second thing is that it really helped me a lot, and I think that's what I want to ask you next. It can be really helpful to start thinking about creativity and expand what that means. Because I remember, when I was in certain art circles, there was a very clear, well, art is only galleries, or art is only if you came up with the thing and somebody pays you for it, instead of somebody gives you the assignment and pays you as a commission, or if it's, so there was a lot of this sort of what is art that was very intellectual, but not quite grounded, in my opinion. And so when I started to look at art more as creativity, as I have a high need to be self-expressed, to do something that matters to me, right? To do something that is creative. Well, there are a lot of things
Yes.
I can do that in, right? And for some people, it will be paintings or photography or something else in an art gallery. And for some other people, it might be something else. So I really want to talk about what happened, what are some of the other things you've done? Because you're now a UX UI designer, but before that, you had your own business and also worked as a public school art teacher.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, what is the thread and what did you learn through this transformation?
Yeah. I always wanted to keep my foot in the door in that creative space. So for me, I was offered opportunities to be a car salesman, a woman person, but I didn't take them because I just knew that was, maybe it was going to make me money, but it wasn't going to fulfill my inner need to be in a space where I could be creative. And so that's why my journey always had one foot in the creative, spectrum. And to your point, when I was a business owner, I had a balloon decorating business. So we did balloon arches, basically a huge sculpture, balloons, balloon sculptures, and again, kind of going back to what we said, learning the actual skill to be a balloon like sculptor was amazing and super fun, but then I also had to learn the other skills, right? And then in education, I was kind of the whole time always was a teacher of some sort, like a swimming instructor or a tutor, or this or that, but finally I was like, well, I want to focus in on art because that's what I love. And so I focus in on art education. And honestly, it was a really good place for me to be for when I started, because I got to always keep like I got to teach, but I also got to learn, right? And so I learned about a lot of artists who I had never heard about. I got to inspire students. I got to see them grow. Like it was a very rewarding career, in so many different ways. And again, creativity doesn't always mean creating a painting or photography, but creating a space where creativity is allowed and people are like accepted and loved. And so it was the careers I had prior to being a UX designer had always had a thread of of creating, for sure.
You know what that makes me think of is that we can even put our creativity in how we go about our careers,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
There's something about that, as seeing an opportunity and seeing what you could do with that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that
And something that actually occurred to me earlier when I was thinking about this is like, I remember when I told people I was gonna be an artist or in the art world, and so I mean, there's a lot of doubt from like the outside world. Like, what are you gonna do with that? Like, they feel very limited by this choice,
Mm.
which seems really like weird to me because as a creative, we make something out of nothing. Like that is the whole concept, right? Or you make something out of lots of things. And so to create a career that like, I mean, to have the opportunity to go from no career to whatever career you want, or to create your own career out of all this cool things that you've gathered, which is I feel like what kind of happened to me, is an opportunity in itself.
Yeah, I think you're making a great point. And also, so many things that I learned by learning art to serve me.
Mm-hmm.
Later, one of the things was like to really start seeing patterns, connections, the idea of being just fearless. What do I feel like?
Yeah.
Right? That freedom. And I actually noticed that when I switched to marketing, and I started to notice that sometimes when I met people that I gone through, business school or something, that was like never that freedom of just like,
Mm-hmm.
well, what do you want? You can do whatever you want. Because art school is like there are no rules,
Yeah.
right? You just
Yeah.
do whatever, and you get to know yourself more deeply. And there is something that is so helpful no matter what you do, and it's at the core of innovation.
Yes. And innovation is super valuable. you
Mm. Yeah,
know? Mm.
yeah. Okay, all right. Okay, so I really want to ask you about being a UX UI designer, and what was changing careers like for you, and what inner or outer obstacles did you have to overcome?
Um, so it was definitely a process, I'll say that. And I'll start with saying, I think there was a huge period of reflection and a lot of inner work that had to happen before I actually got to the point where I was ready to make the change of careers. Like I said earlier, I was a teacher for 15 years. Maybe my first 10 years, I was really into being a teacher. I loved it. I was very committed. Um, I just was thriving. And about around after 10 years, I kind of started getting burned out. And the last 5 years kind of started something switched, right? Either I just got burned out because it's just a very high stress environment, or you're always you can't shut your mind off basically. And so I started having some health problems. I started like losing my temper. I started just seeing some things I didn't like. And at the end of the day, I just thought to myself, I'm not happy at this point, but I also I cannot think of being in this situation for another 20 years. What do I have to do to change my, like, what's going on? Um, and how do I do it in a way that is purposeful and meaningful, right? Because I can't just go from being a teacher to working at a counter. I mean, working at a coffee counter. I could do it, but like I didn't want that. Like I wanted my change to be like an upward move of careers as well. And so what really kind of started happening is really two things. One, really the pandemic for me was really important because it took me out of the rat race and it gave me time to contemplate and to take action. You know, there's like the 5 steps of change, the pre-contemplation, then contemplation, preparation, and action, and then maintenance, I think is the last one. So it got me to get ready to actually make the change. And then simultaneously, before even the pandemic happened, I had been a part of a 12-step program. And this created a really strong community for me where I just got a lot of really useful tools on like keeping the focus on myself and learning about boundaries and things like that. And so those were like my inner pivotal things that really happened. And one thing I do want to mention about that 12-step program that sounds kind of interesting about career changes is at the end of it, I remember we had this little saying, I mean, it's still there. There's a saying that says, keep coming back. It works if you work it and you're worth it. I'm not kidding you. And every time I had to say you're worth it to me, it like hit me like a rock because I guess I just didn't realize that like I didn't think I was worth a better job. I didn't think I was good enough for something more than. And so for me to hear those words like from myself was like life-changing. So once I kind of realized that I was worth it, really worth it, that's when the change really started to happen. And I
Yeah,
started looking at programs. Yeah.
can I stop? Yeah, I wanted to stop you right there because you're seeing so many powerful things. And I
Mm-hmm.
kind of when I stop for a moment to reflect some of that because
Yeah.
the one thing that I think it's really important for people listening to this to realize is that what you described, you know, liking your job, at some point not liking your job, and then getting in a bad mood about it, right? And then feeling more stuck. I think I talk to a lot of people where that happens and they feel there's something wrong with them or they
Yeah.
feel like it shouldn't happen. And it's like, no, that's how it happens. Unless you know, like you're feeling good and then you find something that will make you feel even better, which sometimes it happens, but it's more rare. Most
Mm-hmm.
of us go through something like that. There's something we like, we're doing it, we enjoyed it, we don't quite realize it creeps up on us, and then we start looking at how we're behaving or what we're thinking and we don't like it because yeah, well, we're not that happy, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
think it's really important to normalize this and sort of like notice, okay, this is what happens. It's a normal human being thing when you're at the end of something, right? But the other part that really touched me deeply is that when you shared about slowing down, having some time to be with yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and then getting out of the other side of that being, I'm worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's another thing that happens a lot of times where then we're doing things that doesn't resonate with us anymore and we feel a little lost. It's also very, very common to then start feeling, oh, maybe I'm not worth it, maybe, you know. And instead, how powerful is it to discover, no, I'm worth it. I'm not my job. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not this, right?
Yeah.
I'm worth it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean it it's still a journey, you know, till this day I feel a lot more um I feel stronger mentally. I feel like I've gone through a lot of changes, but I still have a lot of change to go through. Like it's not done yet. You know, it's just the beginning. And that's also exciting. You know, that's also exciting. And the one also great thing for me as a
We just
UX.
had an earthquake.
Oh no.
Yeah. And
Uh-oh.
it's
You
still
want
kind
to
of
explain it?
shaking.
Oh. I'll wait. Do you need to
That,
go hide under some desk or something?
yeah. Wait. So Google is telling me about it. Hold on.
Okay. Yeah, take your go
Let
do
me see
whatever's
one
safe.
second.
Yes.
Aftershocks are common. Okay. Well, I think I should be okay. All right.
Are you sure you don't want to like
Sorry to
take a minute?
interrupt you again.
No, no,
No,
no, it's
I mean,
okay.
I'm a California girl at this point, so, earthquakes.
They
It's
happen a
certain.
lot.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Anyway, all right.
Sheesh.
Hopefully, not too bad. Sorry to interrupt.
No,
I
no,
just said I had to have a moment there.
natural disaster comes in first.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
you were saying
yeah,
change. Yes, that maybe there will be more change. Yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Change.
Well, okay, let me get
I,
us back on track here, which is like we talked about inner shift, right?
yes,
And things to
inner shift.
overcome. And so coming out of that, reconnecting with yourself and
Oh
coming
yeah.
out with, again, knowing what you wanted more from the inside out, that will
Hmm.
still put you on this path of creativity and
Hmm.
what feels right to you. What about outer obstacles?
Yes, actually. So outer obstacles, um, for me specifically, um, I have people in my life that love me a lot, but I'd say that sometimes they have their own narrative or like the path that they want you to follow because they think that's a safe path, or like, and so for me actually becoming a teacher was a path that somebody kind of instilled in me as like the safe option as an artist. It happened that I was good at it and that I enjoyed it, but it's not what I want it to be. And something also that happened is I noticed now, and I noticed, but I didn't know that then, is I just didn't have I didn't have a path. I didn't have a map of where I was going at all. And so without a map, of course I'm gonna my like what people tell you to do. I mean, maybe not, but like for me, what people told me to do, I was like, you should do this. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. Like it seemed easier than to really actually do the work to figure out what to do. And sometimes we don't know what we don't know, right? Because I did not know what a UX designer was till 4 years ago. I'm like, I didn't even know that was an opportunity or a job or a career. And it's a great career. Maybe if I would have known about it 10 years ago, we would be in a different place now. Um,
Well, it's also interesting because a lot of careers we might not know they exist. I mean, I
yeah,
didn't know about coaching until I was in my 30s. Like, so,
yeah,
right? Like, and some careers didn't even exist. I mean, like a UX designer. I mean, I don't know that I don't know how even known or common that career was 20, 25 years ago.
yeah,
So there's also new careers that come up, right?
yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure.
All right. So, okay. Can you tell me a little bit like, well, I'm curious what you like about, UX, UI design and what is different for you now. So what's your experience as a creative to go
Yeah,
into that too?
I love that. Yeah, one of it is that like it's a very inclusive career. People are there to help you. Like you have a really strong community online, offline. Like from the beginning, till to today, I have made a lot of really great friendships. But a lot of also I'm like surrounded by people that are, even though we're different, we're also like-minded, right? And we're trying to solve all the problems in the world through user experience. But no, that's really cool about it. Like you're being challenged every day to solve a problem, and you get to solve it sometimes in a creative way, sometimes not. But for somebody that just likes being challenged, this is the best way to be challenged, where like you're creating a solution for something that is not uh I mean, unless you're making an application for a doctor or an airplane, most of us are going to create an application that's, you know, can make an impact in the world, but it's not going to affect anybody's life at the end of the day. And then for me, like as the shift that has happened, I mean, I talked about health issues as an educator because of the amount of stress I was dealing with. And so my health has really has gotten a lot better. I come home, I have energy to go to the gym. I have the space to do other things that I want to do. Partly because I always have like 100 things I want to do and I cannot do all of them, but I can at least focus on one thing at a time. And that actually has been one of the things I learned through this path of career changing, is that I just chose UX and I just kept course, like no matter what. I was like, nothing is going to come in my way. Like I'm going to karate chop any other idea I have, because this is where I'm going and this is the goal I need to achieve. And I mean, I didn't take off to go back to school. Like I was teaching, I was being a wife, I was going through some really hard things with my family, and so having the sense to just know, like, I need to do hard things so things can get easier. Like, hard choices, easy life is one of my favorite sayings. And it's true. It's true because 1 year and a half away, like, I mean, I'm sitting here in my house. I get to wake up at whatever, 7 o'clock instead of 5 o'clock. I get to have an hour lunch. I have so much gratitude every day. Like, I cannot say, like, I can't believe this is my life. Like, that's how like impactful this shift of career has been for me. I still wake up thinking right now I would have like 27 7-year-olds asking me a million questions.
Which might be the dream career of for somebody, right?
It's cute and amazing for like a little bit.
Yeah, no, I know. I, well, first of all, being your friend too, it made me so happy to hear when you told me about how happy you were. So I just want to say this is just really wonderful for me to
Thank
hear.
you. Yeah.
But also, like, the other thing that I want to point to is that I recorded a video this morning about it, which by the time this will air, this will be published. I already published the video, but which really makes a point. A lot of the times, we don't realize the difference it makes an industry, a field. And it's very important to know what you like and not assume that if you're struggling, it's you, right?
Yeah.
So I taught children, I work with teenagers. I like working with adults better, right? There's no wrong, or yeah, I know people that love working with children, right? For them, like, that's so it's so important to be honest with ourselves and start accepting ourselves the way we are and just be like, this is not for me. And also at the same time understanding that different industries do things differently, and that some things are gonna be either not possible or really so much more of a struggle in one industry than the other, right? And teachers work really hard in some ways. And it's like if you try to work less hard in some ways as a teacher, you're like working uphill and maybe not even possible. But in another industry, that might be like, oh yeah, that's how it works here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Yeah.
also, I think, it's really important to remember, because I know I do this. I know I work with people, I have clients that tell me about this. Like, it's so normal for some of us to again struggle and then think, oh, it must be me. I have to be changing myself, right? Instead of saying like, oh, okay, let me look at outside and find what's actually a good fit, right?
A good fit. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a relationship, right? I mean, it's a relationship with your job ultimately. And to your point, like, some people are, I mean, even including myself, like, I really love the kids. I really love being a teacher. I just grew out of it, right? Like, grew out of it. I mean, if you put a kid in front of me right now, like, we are like best friends. Like, I speak kid, it's fine. But I don't, to your point, I don't want to have the hustle and bustle of being in the industry that just demands so much of what at this point in my life I just cannot give anymore. Right. I have a lot to give, but my capacity has shifted. And so and where I am now, not only it's being met, but also I'm being challenged and I'm getting to learn, and I'm, seeing a completely different side of the world. It's almost like going to a different country. Like I'm in this new island, and I'm learning a lot about this new world, which is exciting, but also about myself through it. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I want to ask you one more question. At least that is one
Yeah,
more
yeah.
question.
I'm
So,
here.
so for me, at the core of my work is this belief that we all inside of us have our own inner wisdom and we have deep knowing that guides us. And so, yes, we can learn from others. We can, work with a coach or, have all sorts of help, a mentor and colleagues. But ultimately, it's that deeper guidance that knows what's best and has to be able to be in the front seat. So my question for you is, how do you feel about this idea of the inner wisdom? What does that mean for you?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. And I think inner wisdom for me is just having the mindfulness to look inside yourself all the time, constantly, because who I am today is not who I'm going to be tomorrow. And and just accept yourself for what you're going through, for who you are, like have compassion, be gentle, like it's um it's really easy to focus on so many negative things, but when you can just really see your inner beauty and when you can see your inner strength, that exudes out and like it really like magnifies itself. So yeah, for me just like finding that new like self-worth has just completely shifted everything in my life, obviously, as you can tell. Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to share with anybody that might be listening to this and is thinking about making a change, and they're a little bit scared or they feel
Yeah.
insecure?
Yeah, I mean, change is scary, right? And you kind of just have to know that like there's that like imposter syndrome from a lot of us, and that like being uncomfortable is okay. I mean, for like I said, me going into UX design after being a teacher and having like all these really strong, I was like a really strong teacher. I had all these tools, this classroom management, and now I'm going into a completely different field where like I don't even know how to use a program. I don't know any of the lingo, and just like learning to be uncomfortable with being uncomfortable is really important. And that like failure is not really failure, right? Like it's just an opportunity for you to just gain more and more information and like access the skills that you need to get to where you're going. I think that's something I wanted to bring up.
I think it's beautiful. I I think so. Maybe even when we were at school together, I one of the teachings that really changed my life that I read in a book was really this idea of seeing a time when I was down as like being like in a cocoon,
Mm,
like.
yeah.
And I remember reading that when the caterpillar, that become
Yeah.
before it get becomes a butterfly, when it's in the cocoon, like it becomes goo. It literally melts. It's like it's goo, and
Yes. Yes.
and so like since then, when I feel like stuck or I feel like insecure, I feel all this, that's what I bring myself to, thinking of these
I love
nature
that.
images of like, okay, well, I'm being goo, that this doesn't feel very good, but if I let myself be goo for a while,
Yeah.
something else comes, or there's always spring after winter, that, which is
Right.
like, it sounds cheesy, but I
Yeah.
found that to be so helpful to remember that,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I think most of us are goo most of the time. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a good way to put it. All right, so I've had so much fun. Thank you so much for joining me here, Michelle. It made me really happy. And if anybody wants to be in touch with you, how can they reach you?
Yeah, I definitely have a LinkedIn account, so you can contact me through there. I'm also working on a website as we speak. So once I will have the link on my LinkedIn, and so you can go through my website there. Um, and but thank you again for having me and inviting me to your podcast. I love all the work that you do, and that you're coaching and you're changing people's lives, and you've definitely made an impact with everything that you are creating for the rest of the world. So thank you so much, Aurora.
Oh, thank you. I'm gonna have your LinkedIn, your website, everything listed here so people can read it. And for everybody else, if you want to know more about what I do, you can go to repurposeyourpurpose.com and find lots of writing and content on doing work that you love and achieving your goals. Thank you so much, everybody. To the next episode.
Bye.